You think presidential Christmas dinners were always formal state affairs with diplomatic menus? Think again. From Washington's wild game feasts to Biden's ice cream obsession, the foods our commanders-in-chief craved during the holidays reveal surprising stories of taste, tradition, and transformation. Here are 46 presidents and their favorite Christmas meals. George Washington celebrated Christmas at Mount Vernon with lavish feasts reflecting Virginia plantation abundance. His table groaned under roasted wild duck, oysters from the Chesapeake, and Madeira wine imported by the barrel. Christmas dinner featured game birds, Virginia ham from his smokehouses, and desserts Martha supervised personally. Washington's legendary hospitality meant neighbors and relatives filled the mansion for gatherings lasting days, enjoying fare combining English tradition with American bounty. John Adams brought New England restraint to presidential Christmas, preferring simple roasted meats and apple cider over imported wines. Abigail supervised holiday meals featuring boiled puddings, mince pies, and practical Yankee cooking that sustained their family through revolutionary hardship. Christmas meant church, followed by quiet family dinners emphasizing gratitude over excess. The Adams family valued frugality, their holiday tables reflecting principles over pretension. Thomas Jefferson transformed presidential dining with French culinary sophistication learned during his years as minister to Paris. His enslaved chef James Hemings trained in French techniques, creating holiday feasts featuring imported wines, macaroni preparations, and ice cream Jefferson designed special molds for. Christmas at Monticello meant intellectual conversation alongside refined cuisine that scandalized Federalists who considered French cooking dangerously aristocratic. James Madison's Christmas celebrations at the White House reflected Dolly Madison's legendary entertaining genius that made her the most celebrated hostess in early American history. Her elaborate parties featured Virginia ham, oyster dishes in various preparations, and the ice cream she popularized at presidential functions that guests talked about for years afterward. The War of 1812 disrupted their final White House Christmas, when British forces had burned the mansion just months earlier, forcing the Madisons to celebrate in temporary quarters with whatever provisions war-ravaged Washington could provide. Dolly somehow maintained gracious hospitality despite displaced circumstances. James Monroe hosted Christmas during the era of good feelings, with dinners emphasizing national unity and American abundance that reflected optimism about the young republic's future. His table featured wild turkey, venison from Virginia forests, and native game that symbolized the nation's natural wealth stretching westward. Monroe's French furniture and elegant entertaining style brought European sophistication to presidential dining, while his menus deliberately celebrated ingredients distinctly American in origin. Holiday guests enjoyed wines from his personal cellar, alongside traditional plum puddings, prepared according to recipes his wife Elizabeth treasured from her New York upbringing. John Quincy Adams brought scholarly austerity to White House Christmas celebrations, preferring quiet family dinners and intellectual discussion to elaborate entertaining that distracted from serious pursuits. The former diplomat appreciated fine European cuisine from years abroad, serving in Russia, Prussia, and England, but kept holiday meals relatively simple compared to predecessors. His diary records Christmas dinners of roast beef and plum pudding shared with family. The intellectual president more interested in reading, scientific observation, and reflection than the social whirl Washington society expected of the chief executive's household. Andrew Jackson transformed White House Christmas into boisterous democratic celebrations open to common citizens who tracked mud across presidential carpets while eating his food and drinking his whiskey. His frontier tastes favored wild game, corn dishes, and the hearty Tennessee cooking of his youth that sophisticated Washington hostesses found barbaric. Jackson served massive wheels of cheese to holiday crowds and hosted dinners featuring wild turkey shot on his own hunts in the nearby countryside. Christmas meant generous hospitality, reflecting his deep belief that the people's house belonged to all Americans, regardless of social standing or proper etiquette. Martin Van Buren's refined tastes earned him stinging criticism as an aristocratic dandy, unsuited for democratic leadership and ordinary American sensibilities. His Christmas tables featured elaborate French cuisine prepared by skilled cooks trained in continental methods, with fine wines and elegant presentations rivaling European courts. Critics mocked his gold spoons and finger bowls as monarchical pretensions, while supporters appreciated sophisticated entertaining befitting a head of state representing America abroad. Holiday dinners included turtle soup, roasted fowl with delicate sauces, and continental refinement Van Buren acquired during his successful diplomatic career. William Henry Harrison served only 31 days before dying of pneumonia, leaving no White House Christmas celebration to remember or menu to document. His campaign emphasized log cabin simplicity and hard cider over aristocratic pretension, suggesting holiday meals would have featured frontier fare, reflecting his military background, fighting Native Americans in the Northwest Territory. The general who defeated Tecumseh at Tippecanoe preferred straightforward American cooking to elaborate entertaining, though he never lived to host a presidential Christmas dinner or establish any culinary traditions in the executive mansion. John Tyler celebrated Christmas with traditional Virginia hospitality, reflecting his Tidewater roots. His large family filling the White House with children's laughter and youthful energy during holiday seasons that felt genuinely festive. His second marriage to young Julia Gardner brought renewed vitality to entertaining, with elaborate balls and dinners featuring oysters prepared multiple ways, Virginia ham, and game birds of Tidewater tradition that Tyler remembered from childhood. Christmas tables reflected plantation abundance, though sectional tensions increasingly shadowed his presidency and complicated celebrations as North and South grew dangerously apart. James K. Polk approached Christmas with the same relentless work ethic that defined his exhausting presidency and ultimately destroyed his health within months of leaving office. The austere Presbyterian rarely entertained lavishly, preferring simple meals that allowed him to continue working through holidays when others rested. Sarah Polk banned dancing and hard liquor from White House functions on religious principle, making their Christmas celebrations notably restrained and sober. Dinner featured straightforward American fare, without the wines, champagne, and elaborate courses his more convivial predecessors had served to appreciative guests. Zachary Taylor brought military simplicity to White House Christmas celebrations, the old soldier preferring plain frontier cooking to elaborate state dinners that felt foreign to his rough-hewn character. His tastes ran to basic roasted meats and the simple fare that sustained armies in the field during campaigns against Mexico and Seminole Indians. Taylor's daughter acted as hostess, managing holiday entertaining, while her father focused on the sectional crisis consuming his brief presidency. Christmas 1849 featured traditional turkey and the unpretentious hospitality of a career soldier unused to civilian luxury and social pretension. Millard Fillmore hosted Christmas celebrations emphasizing dignified entertaining, appropriate to his accidental presidency following Taylor's sudden death. His wife, Abigail, established the White House Library, bringing intellectual refinement to their holiday gatherings. Christmas dinners featured substantial American cooking of their New York upbringing, alongside formal entertaining expected of a president navigating sectional crisis. The Fillmores balanced accessibility with presidential dignity during difficult political times. Franklin Pierce's Christmas celebrations were deeply shadowed by tragedy. His young son, Benny, having died in a horrific train accident just weeks before the inauguration, crushing both parents' spirits entirely. Jane Pierce remained in mourning throughout the presidency, making holiday entertaining somber affairs, lacking the gaiety and celebration of previous administrations. Christmas dinners proceeded with appropriate formality, but little genuine joy, the bereaved president finding comfort in neither food nor celebration during his troubled term as the nation drifted towards civil war that seemed increasingly inevitable. James Buchanan entertained lavishly, despite the nation sliding inexorably towards civil war. His Christmas celebrations featuring elaborate multi-course dinners with fine wines befitting a lifelong bachelor with refined continental tastes. The president relied on his beautiful niece Harriet Lane as hostess, her youth, charm, and social grace brightening holiday gatherings at the increasingly tense White House. Buchanan's sophisticated tastes included imported delicacies and formal European-style entertaining. Even as Southern states prepared openly to secede from the Union, he seemed powerless to preserve. Abraham Lincoln's Christmas celebrations during the Civil War balanced presidential duty with profound personal grief and awareness of national suffering on battlefields from Virginia to Mississippi. His 1864 Christmas featured a 20-pound turkey donated by admirers and oyster stuffing prepared by the White House kitchen, while Union armies pressed toward ultimate victory. Mary Todd Lincoln attempted elaborate entertaining despite vicious criticism, but the president himself preferred simple foods, including his beloved chicken fricassee. Christmas meant pardoning turkeys, reading agonizing casualty lists, and hoping desperately the war would end before another holiday season passed in blood. Andrew Johnson hosted Christmas amid Reconstruction's bitter chaos, his presidency consumed by conflict with congressional Republicans. The Tennessee tailor's humble origins showed in preference for simple Southern cooking over French cuisine. Christmas dinners proceeded formally, while Johnson faced impeachment threats, the holiday offering little respite from political warfare. His table featured straightforward American fare, reflecting border state traditions. Ulysses S. Grant's Christmas celebrations reflected both military simplicity learned in army camps and Julia Grant's persistent aspirations to elegant entertaining befitting the nation's savior. The general who won the Civil War through relentless grinding warfare preferred plain roasted meats and simple fare, though state dinners featured elaborate courses befitting Gilded Age expectations of presidential magnificence. Grant's love of horses exceeded his interest in food, but Christmas brought family gatherings where the taciturn, awkward president relaxed with children and grandchildren around tables laden with traditional holiday plenty. Rutherford B. Hayes and his wife Lucy banned alcohol from White House entertaining, earning her the nickname Lemonade Lucy from disappointed Washington society. Their Christmas celebrations featured elaborate food without wine, shocking the Capitol's elite. Lucy emphasized wholesome family values, decorating the first indoor White House Christmas tree in 1879. Holiday dinners included traditional turkey and temperance beverages that made their administration distinctive, if controversial. James A. Garfield served only months before an assassin's bullet ended his presidency tragically, leaving scant record of his holiday preferences or entertaining style for historians to examine. The scholarly Ohio congressman appreciated good conversation and intellectual exchange over elaborate dining, suggesting Christmas celebrations would have emphasized family warmth and thoughtful discussion. His brief tenure offered no opportunity for White House holiday entertaining, though his wife, Lucretia, was known for practical Midwestern hospitality, that favored genuine warmth and substance over pretentious show in both food and social occasions. Chester A. Arthur transformed the shabby White House into a showcase of Gilded Age elegance that reflected his own refined tastes and love of luxury. His Christmas celebrations featuring the finest cuisine money could procure. The dapper New Yorker employed a French chef and served elaborate multi-course dinners with premium wines selected by knowledgeable advisors. Arthur's legendary appetite and refined tastes made holiday entertaining lavish affairs that impressed even jaded Washington society, though he carefully guarded his privacy and personal life from public scrutiny. Christmas meant oysters, game birds, and sophisticated pleasures. Grover Cleveland's first-term Christmas celebrations reflected his bachelor status and notorious workaholic tendencies. Simple affairs focused more on duty than festivity or social pleasure. His 1886 marriage to young Frances Folsom transformed White House entertaining dramatically, bringing youthful energy and genuine joy to holiday gatherings. Christmas dinners featured substantial American cooking, reflecting Cleveland's unpretentious tastes, though Frances ensured appropriate elegance befitting the executive mansion. The president's famous appetite meant generous portions of corned beef, pickled herring, and German-American cuisine of his Buffalo upbringing. Benjamin Harrison's Christmas celebrations introduced electric lights to White House decorations, the new technology transforming holiday displays with magical brightness. Caroline Harrison emphasized American themes, using domestically produced china and decorations celebrating national manufacturing. Christmas dinners featured traditional fare, served with dignity befitting a president descended from founding families. The Harrisons' grandchildren brought joy to holiday seasons, their laughter echoing through rooms with the first electrically lit Christmas tree in presidential history. Grover Cleveland's second-term Christmas celebrations occurred amid severe economic depression, tempering festivities with awareness of national suffering and widespread unemployment. Frances Cleveland continued elegant entertaining while her husband worried over bank failures and bread lines. Christmas dinners maintained presidential dignity without excessive display that might seem insensitive during hard times. Cleveland's substantial appetite remained, though serious economic crisis cast shadows over holiday gatherings throughout his troubled second administration. William McKinley's Christmas celebrations emphasized domestic tranquility with his invalid wife Ida, whose frequent seizures required constant attention and severely limited social entertaining. The devoted husband kept holiday celebrations modest, preferring quiet family dinners to elaborate state occasions that exhausted his fragile wife. McKinley's simple tastes ran to traditional American fare, without culinary pretension or elaborate French courses. Christmas meant church attendance, precious time with Ida, and the gentle domesticity that defined their tender partnership, despite her chronic illness and his demanding public responsibilities. Theodore Roosevelt filled the White House with 6 rambunctious children, various pets including a pony, and boundless energy that made Christmas celebrations memorably chaotic and joyful. His children received presents in stockings hung by the fireplace, while the exuberant president carved massive turkeys for extended family gatherings that overflowed with noise and laughter. Roosevelt's hearty appetite matched his strenuous personality, favoring game from his hunting expeditions alongside traditional holiday fare. Christmas meant family above all else, the vigorous president becoming devoted father, surrounded by children sliding down staircases and pets roaming freely. William Howard Taft's legendary appetite made Christmas celebrations particularly abundant, the 300-pound president requiring substantial portions to satisfy his enormous hunger. His love of food was unashamed, holiday dinners featuring multiple courses consumed with evident pleasure and good humor. Taft's Christmas tables groaned under roasted meats, elaborate desserts, and rich dishes contributing to his famous girth. The jovial president enjoyed holiday entertaining, despite political difficulties that would cost him re-election to his friend Roosevelt. Woodrow Wilson's Christmas celebrations ranged from joyful family gatherings during peaceful years to somber wartime observances during World War I, when American soldiers died in French trenches. The intellectual president preferred simple Southern cooking, reflecting his Virginia upbringing, though Ellen Wilson, and later his second wife Edith, ensured appropriate presidential entertaining. Christmas 1918 found Wilson in Europe, negotiating peace at Versailles. His holiday spent working rather than feasting with family. His austere Presbyterian values shaped celebrations emphasizing faith, duty, and family over elaborate culinary display or social excess. Warren G. Harding's Christmas celebrations reflected his genial personality and dangerous love of entertaining friends and cronies who later proved disastrously corrupt and ultimately destroyed his reputation. The Ohio newspaper publisher enjoyed poker games and bootleg whiskey during Prohibition, though official holiday dinners maintained respectable appearances required of presidential entertaining. Florence Harding supervised elaborate celebrations, while her husband's scandals gathered unseen like approaching storms. Christmas meant generous hospitality toward the cronies whose betrayals would destroy Harding's posthumous reputation entirely after his sudden death. Calvin Coolidge approached Christmas with characteristic New England frugality, his legendary silence extending to modest holiday celebrations that seemed almost parsimonious to Washington society. The taciturn Vermonter preferred simple fare, reportedly counting guests at dinner to calculate food costs, with notable thrift that amused and puzzled observers. Grace Coolidge brought warmth and charm to entertaining that her husband's dour, expressionless demeanor completely lacked. Christmas dinners featured traditional American cooking without extravagance, the president's rural Vermont upbringing showing clearly in his unpretentious tastes and careful attention to household economy. Herbert Hoover's Christmas celebrations during the Great Depression required careful balance between maintaining presidential dignity and showing appropriate sensitivity to unprecedented national suffering. The humanitarian who had fed starving Europeans after World War I now watched helplessly as Americans stood in bread lines while he dined at the White House. Lou Hoover maintained entertaining standards, while her husband agonized over economic collapse that seemed beyond any solution. Christmas dinners proceeded with restraint, but without the elaborate excess that would have seemed obscene given widespread hunger across the nation. Franklin D. Roosevelt gathered 4 generations of family for Christmas celebrations that balanced festive tradition with depression and wartime realities that touched every American household. FDR loved grilled cheese sandwiches, fruitcake year-round, and mixing his signature martinis personally before holiday dinners. His beloved tradition of reading Dickens' Christmas Carol aloud on Christmas Eve united generations around the fire. Despite Eleanor's notoriously bland White House cooking that prioritized nutrition over flavor, holidays brought wild duck and terrapin Roosevelt genuinely enjoyed. Wartime Christmases honored rationing with unfrosted cakes. Harry S. Truman preferred returning to Independence, Missouri for Christmas whenever possible, though he faithfully stayed in Washington until after the staff party on Christmas Eve showed appreciation for White House workers. The plain-spoken Missourian loved simple Midwestern cooking, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and hearty fare from his rural upbringing that seemed homely to Washington sophisticates. Christmas 1945 featured the first post-war celebration with turkey served without bread or rolls, honoring ongoing food conservation even after victory. Truman's holiday table reflected his no-nonsense personality and genuine warmth toward household staff. Dwight D. Eisenhower's Christmas celebrations set records, with 26 elaborately decorated trees filling the White House in 1959, each themed differently to delight visitors. The former general loved beef stew, vegetable soup, and simple army fare that sustained him through war. Mamie Eisenhower established consistent Blue Room tree placement and supervised elaborate decorations that became holiday tradition. Their 1960 Christmas featured a 42-pound turkey and gallon of oysters from admiring donors grateful for peace and prosperity. Ike preferred steaks rare and holidays surrounded by grandchildren who brought joy to the executive mansion. John F. Kennedy brought elegant French cuisine to White House Christmas celebrations, hiring the mansion's first executive chef at Jackie's insistence that American presidential entertaining match European sophistication. The Massachusetts native loved New England fish chowder, requesting it so frequently that he shared the family recipe with a young girl who wrote asking about his favorite foods. Jackie introduced nutcracker-themed decorations and sophisticated French desserts, including crème brûlée. Despite the Francophile elegance, Kennedy himself preferred simple fare: soup, sandwiches, and waffles from his family's recipe preserved in the National Archives. Lyndon B. Johnson brought Texas-sized appetites to White House Christmas, his legendary barbecues and Tex-Mex feasts reflecting deep hill country roots in the ranch land around Johnson City. The president loved chili, barbecued ribs, and his own Pedernales River chili recipe he shared with anyone who asked. Lady Bird balanced his hearty, informal tastes with elegant Southern entertaining befitting the presidency. Christmas meant family gatherings at the Texas ranch when possible, featuring smoked meats, pecan pie, and overwhelming hospitality. Johnson scandalized traditionalists by pairing wine with spare ribs at state occasions. Richard Nixon's Christmas dinners were notably restrained, particularly the small, tense, private 1973 gathering amid Watergate's mounting crisis that would destroy his presidency within months. The president famously ate cottage cheese with ketchup for breakfast, reflecting peculiar tastes that baffled and amused White House staff, who found his food preferences bizarre. Christmas featured traditional turkey, stuffing, and pumpkin pie served to a shrinking circle of family and remaining loyal friends as investigations closed in. Pat Nixon maintained gracious entertaining despite crushing pressure, ensuring celebrations proceeded with dignity even as the presidency crumbled. Gerald Ford brought Midwestern normalcy to White House Christmas after Watergate's trauma, his unpretentious tastes and genuine decency reflecting Grand Rapids roots that reassured a shaken nation. The athletic president loved pot roast, red cabbage, and Betty's home cooking over fancy French cuisine that seemed false and pretentious. Christmas celebrations emphasized healing and family, with the Fords working earnestly to restore confidence in the presidency through authentic warmth. Their holiday table featured traditional American fare, turkey, dressing, and straightforward cooking that reminded Americans their president was fundamentally decent and trustworthy. Jimmy Carter brought Southern comfort to White House Christmas, the Georgia peanut farmer serving cheesy grits even at formal occasions that sometimes puzzled foreign dignitaries expecting continental cuisine. The president prepared breakfast himself, scrambling eggs with cheese for daughter Amy in the family kitchen, like any ordinary father. Christmas featured simple Southern fare, country ham, sweet potato casserole, and unpretentious cooking of Plains, Georgia that reflected his roots. Carter's celebrations emphasized family and Baptist faith over elaborate entertaining, reflecting genuine humility that sometimes frustrated Washington's social establishment. Ronald Reagan's Christmas celebrations sparkled with Hollywood glamour, Nancy orchestrating elaborate decorations and elegant entertaining that restored theatrical grandeur to the White House. The president's jelly bean habit began as smoking cessation and became signature Americana, with Jelly Belly creating special red, white, and blue beans for his inauguration celebration. Christmas 1983 featured roast turkey with turnip sleighs filled with spiced apple puree and sherbet packages tied with edible ribbons. Reagan loved traditional American fare, including his mother Nell's fried chicken, though Nancy ensured holiday tables reflected sophistication befitting America's leading couple. George H.W. Bush celebrated Christmas at Camp David with extended family, enjoying relatively low-key holiday meals featuring turkey, pork tenderloin, and pecan pie in the rustic mountain retreat. The president famously despised broccoli with public passion, but loved pork rinds doused in Tabasco sauce and Tex-Mex, reflecting his adopted Texas home. Barbara Bush's warmth and humor defined holiday entertaining, with grandchildren filling Camp David's cabins during festive celebrations. Their 1990 Nutcracker Ballet-themed White House featured 47 decorated trees. Christmas meant family games, church services, and patrician informality that defined Bush hospitality. Bill Clinton's Christmas celebrations brought Arkansas abundance to Washington, featuring both families' favorites, turkey and ham together, 2 kinds of stuffing, sweet potato casserole, and overwhelming arrays of pies in every variety. The president loved fast food, but Chelsea's preferences shaped holiday menus, including plain sweet potato requested specifically. Champagne, eggnog, syllabub, and sweet potato punch from an Arkansas newspaper recipe flowed freely throughout celebrations. The Clintons stayed at the White House for Christmas, their elaborate spreads reflecting Southern hospitality and Hillary's determination to include everyone's cherished traditions from both families. George W. Bush continued his father's Camp David Christmas tradition, enjoying relatively casual holiday meals away from Washington's spotlight and media scrutiny at the mountain retreat. The president loved cheeseburger pizza and Tex-Mex, reflecting Texas roots, though Laura ensured holiday tables featured proper traditional fare expected of presidential entertaining. Their 2007 Christmas lunch included turkey, green beans, sweet potatoes, Parker House rolls, and red velvet cake. Bush's 49 decorated trees in 2001 set records for the Home for the Holidays theme. Christmas meant ranch time in Crawford when possible, with family informality defining celebrations. Barack Obama's Christmas celebrations often meant Hawaii vacations connecting the family to his birthplace and childhood, with the 2011 holiday featuring steak, potatoes, green beans, and pie enjoyed in tropical warmth. The president loved his homemade chili recipe, perfected since college days, though holiday tables featured traditional fare alongside favorite broccoli and guacamole with chips. Michelle Obama's healthy eating initiatives influenced White House cuisine, carefully balancing indulgence with nutrition, even during celebrations. Their Christmas decorations emphasized hope and joy, while maintaining Hawaiian family tradition and elaborate expectations Americans expected. Donald Trump's Christmas celebrations featured McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, alongside traditional White House fare, his well-documented fast food preferences distinguishing his presidency from all predecessors. His go-to Filet-O-Fish sandwich and Big Macs contrasted sharply with Melania's elaborate decorations that sometimes drew mockery and controversy. Christmas dinners at Mar-a-Lago offered more luxurious options, including prime rib and shrimp cocktail, though Trump himself preferred familiar comfort foods to haute cuisine. Cherry vanilla ice cream and Diet Coke accompanied holiday meals, reflecting populist tastes rather than presidential tradition. Joe Biden's love of ice cream rivals any presidential food obsession. The Delaware native photographed with cones throughout his career. Christmas celebrations feature Italian-American traditions from his Scranton roots, spaghetti with red sauce, pizza, and comfort foods of his Catholic upbringing. Jill Biden's teaching background influences family-centered holidays, emphasizing grandchildren over elaborate entertaining. The president enjoys peanut butter and jelly with orange Gatorade, bringing unpretentious tastes to White House Christmas celebrations.
Gerald Ford's presidency began under challenging circumstances, with the U.S. recovering from the turmoil of the Watergate scandal. In 1974, Ford hosted a state dinner that aimed to restore both domestic and international confidence in the U.S. administration. This dinner was as much about diplomacy and rebuilding trust as it was about the carefully chosen menu designed to impress European leaders and key U.S. political figures. The evening featured a sumptuous array of dishes, starting with beef Wellington, an elegant dish showcasing perfectly cooked beef wrapped in puff pastry, a symbol of refinement. Lobster Newburg followed, an indulgent and decadent dish popular in upscale dining circles. For dessert, Ford's guests were treated to a rich chocolate mousse, a fitting end to an evening meant to impress both the taste buds and the political world. The guest list included European leaders, notably from NATO countries, and influential U.S. political elites. The purpose of the dinner was clear. Ford wanted to assure the world that the U.S. was steady, strong, and ready to maintain its leadership role in the face of post-Watergate uncertainty. It was about rebuilding the nation's reputation and fostering stronger relationships with Europe. William Howard Taft was probably one of the biggest health freaks to ever sit in the president's chair in the White House. Whatever little alcohol or soda he did consume, he would ban from his life effectively immediately if his doctor so much as implied it. That's some real dedication to your gut health, and that is certainly a habit we can respect. But even the most disciplined presidents have their weaknesses, and Taft's was persimmon beer. Andrew Johnson was a simpler man, though, and he liked to relax with a good prime ribeye from anywhere in the Midwest. He often grew up eating cuts of beef of all kinds, so he definitely knew his way around the grill in more ways than one. You will find that he is not the only president to share a passionate love for steak either. Andrew Jackson was pretty fond of what was known as leather britches, which is really just an extra American way to refer to green beans with bacon. Peas, beans, and basic vegetables have always gone beautifully with any kind of protein. It is kind of one of those golden rules of the culinary world where everyone just universally agrees on something. In this case, green beans and bacon have a presidential stamp of approval behind them. Theodore Roosevelt was a man of action, whether charging up San Juan Hill or shaking up Washington politics. So it's no surprise that when he hosted a state dinner in 1905 to honor Japanese diplomats, it was nothing short of groundbreaking. This was the first modern state dinner, marking a new era in U.S. diplomacy. Held to strengthen relations with Japan following the Russo-Japanese War, the event celebrated Roosevelt's role in brokering the Treaty of Portsmouth, which earned him the Nobel Peace Prize. The guest list included Japanese diplomats, led by the Japanese ambassador, and key U.S. officials. It was a carefully orchestrated evening designed to showcase mutual respect and emphasize America's commitment to fostering peace in the Pacific. Roosevelt knew diplomacy could be as much about gestures as policies, and this dinner set the stage for warmer U.S.-Japan relations. Dinner began with mock turtle soup, followed by salmon and roast beef tenderloin. For dessert, the guests were treated to baked Alaska, a showstopper designed to impress. Roosevelt, famous for his larger-than-life personality, reportedly toasted the Japanese delegation with gusto, stating his hope for perpetual friendship between our nations. The 14th president, Franklin Pierce, had a strong affinity for all kinds of alcohol. He never had a preferred drink that would preside over the others in terms of taste, but from scotches and brandies to vodkas with no chasers, the president could certainly drink. Maybe his terms were particularly stressful, even by president standards? William Henry Harrison was a big fan of this homely place called the Log Cabin Inn down in North Bend, Ohio. This inn happened to be one that his family came to own, which naturally became a part of his estate. Having a whole inn as a part of your property is quite the convenience after all. John Tyler loved anywhere you could find good spring chicken, woodcock, or ham and eggs. He had some pretty Virginian tastes, and that is what was trending in the state during the time he was president in the 1840s. James Madison's love for ice cream began when his wife, Dolly, became famously fond of three particular flavors: apricot, pink peppermint, and vanilla. As far as first ladies go, it was pretty sweet of her to keep her husband's glucose levels covered by giving him a newfound sweet tooth, no pun intended. Franklin D. Roosevelt's state dinners during World War II were far from ordinary. They were pivotal moments of wartime diplomacy. In 1943, he hosted a dinner that brought together two of the most influential leaders of the Allied forces, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin. This was a strategic summit designed to solidify alliances and chart the course for victory. The menu was a comforting mix of American tradition and wartime practicality. Guests dined on roast turkey with oyster stuffing, a dish that gave a nod to American holiday feasts. Creamed onions added a rich, homey touch, while English plum pudding, a classic British dessert, bridged the gap between the Allies' different culinary traditions. And to wash it all down, Roosevelt served wine from the White House cellar. The guest list, aside from Churchill and Stalin, included other key Allied leaders, each with their own role to play in the military strategy discussions that followed the meal. The dinner was a blend of high diplomacy and camaraderie, with Roosevelt skillfully using the table as a venue for crucial talks on defeating the Axis powers. Churchill, never shy about his appetite, was said to have enjoyed the food so much he joked, "If we lose this war, at least we'll have had a good dinner." The dinner, after all, was about shaping the future of the world. After the devastation of World War II, the world needed more than just rebuilding. It needed leadership, unity, and a strong diplomatic foundation. William McKinley is one of the few presidents who has a cocktail named after him, complete with a unique recipe. The McKinley Delight was a whiskey mix that was made with rye whiskey, cherry liquor, absinthe, and vermouth, and it was commonly associated with William's campaigns during his presidential run. It is said that after a long, hard day of work that stretched well into the night, he would sit back and unwind with a fresh glass of the stuff. Franklin Pierce was also a fan of New England cuisine, especially things like fried clam. He loved visiting coastal areas like Maine and Rhode Island. Most of the presidents of the early era of the American presidency did not have many favorite places they would go to, because the restaurant industry was not half as developed. They still had areas where they frequented to get their preferences met. Thomas Jefferson kept it pretty plain and simple with some mac and cheese, going back to his childhood days. We are not sure how true this is, but apparently his mom used to make a pretty good mac and cheese, and the love of the dish stuck with him forevermore. Even without a nostalgic backstory, who hasn't enjoyed a mac and cheese phase at some point? After the transformative events of the 1960s, Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency focused on healing the nation's divisions and celebrating progress, especially in the realm of civil rights. In 1965, LBJ hosted a state dinner that reflected the growing unity and the cultural changes in America, especially the strides being made in civil rights. The event was an opportunity to promote American values of equality and inclusivity, while also solidifying the country's leadership on the world stage. The menu was a celebration of Texas-style comfort food, a nod to Johnson's roots. Guests were treated to barbecued ribs, tender and flavorful, accompanied by cornbread, another Southern classic. Texas-style chili added a spicy kick, while pecan pie provided a sweet homegrown dessert to wrap up the evening. It was a dinner steeped in the traditions of the American South, designed to showcase the diversity of American culture. The guest list was diverse, with leaders from the civil rights movement and political elites in attendance. This was a deliberate move by LBJ, who was committed to building bridges within the country while navigating the challenges of a world still reeling from the tensions of the Cold War. Herbert Hoover had a pretty alcoholic palate as far as presidents go. While you have some getting whiskeys named after them and others only enjoying the finest of French distilleries, Herbert chose to keep it on the down low with a tame, dry martini. At best, He would just mix in some vermouth to dilute the gin. This is one president that actually abided by prohibition, it seems. Rutherford B. Hayes was probably the biggest minimalist on the list. He was the type of person to have 1 cup of coffee as a breakfast and 1 cup of tea for lunch. Despite that, he loved angel cake, especially from Ohioan bakeries. He loved enjoying some with his wife, Lucy Webb Hayes. William Henry Harrison brought an old Georgia classic back to life during his run as a president when he popularized squirrel stew again. During the mid-1900s, things like this started to take a dive in popularity, but Harrison was so fond of the stew, also commonly known as Brunswick stew, that he got a trend going. Rutherford B. Hayes may not be the most celebrated name in presidential history, but his state dinners carried a profound significance. Serving as president during the turbulent years following the Civil War, Hayes used these gatherings to promote reconciliation and unity. His administration's focus was clear: mending the nation's divisions after Reconstruction and showing that the United States could indeed move forward together. At his table, former adversaries sat shoulder to shoulder, a symbolic effort to heal the wounds of a fractured nation. The guest list reflected this mission. Prominent Northern and Southern leaders were invited, making these dinners a rare opportunity for dialogue and understanding. Hayes was serving a vision of a united America, one dinner course at a time. The menu, much like Hayes himself, was modest yet thoughtful. Roast chicken and baked fish with cream sauce provided hearty staples, while mashed potatoes offered a comforting touch. Dessert was cherry pie, a nod to American tradition and simplicity. Hayes's wife, Lucy, was the first Lady to ban alcohol from the White House, earning her the nickname Lemonade Lucy. While the dinners were dry, the conversation flowed freely. The goal wasn't extravagance, but familiarity, reminding guests of shared values and a common heritage. Martin Van Buren was cut from the same cloth so that he could really handle his whiskey. In fact, the man had a tolerance notorious enough to earn him the nickname Blue Whiskey Van, both for his inhuman liver and his love of blue whiskey. Guess old habits are hard to kill, especially when they buzz you up in a few glasses. James Monroe did not really have a favorite restaurant in particular because, like Jefferson, he gained a taste for the finer delicacies of French cooking. Once you get hooked, you get onto it for life, and back in their day, most local places did not specialize in French cooking at all. James Monroe ate the same way during his stay at the White House, too. James Polk had a deep appreciation for his cornbread, and for a time, it was thought by most of the members of the White House that the two were as inseparable as winter and beanies. Cornbread itself was a pretty light snack, and its best trait was that it was really filling for its size, so maybe he had time efficiency in mind. Or maybe he just really loved his cornbread. William Howard Taft's presidency was a time when the U.S. was flexing its muscle in the Pacific, and his state dinners played a key role in reinforcing America's growing influence. One notable event in 1911 aimed to strengthen ties with Asian nations, particularly Japan and China, while also promoting trade. As the U.S. emerged as a global power, Taft saw these gatherings as opportunities to forge economic partnerships, and he wasn't about to let a dinner go by without putting America's best foot forward. The guest list was packed with Japanese and Chinese diplomats, along with business leaders who could help cement the U.S.'s economic dominance in the region. The dinner was a diplomatic maneuver designed to promote cooperation and open markets. The menu, an elegant blend of Asian and Western flavors, was carefully selected to impress. It started with consommé with dumplings, followed by roast pheasant, a dish of both sophistication and American tradition. Pineapple fritters brought a tropical flair to the table, while chocolate eclairs added a sweet French touch. These dishes represented the bridging of cultures. Taft, known for his size, was not one to skimp on dinner. At one dinner, he famously remarked, "A president's work is never done, especially when the food is this good." But more than satisfying appetites, these dinners were about strengthening ties that would help shape the Pacific's future. John Tyler and his wine parties were a sight to see whenever you would go by the White House, and if you were lucky enough to be attending the kinds of French wines they would serve, they were immaculate. Both his wife and him seemed to share a mutual hobby for collecting and trying out different wines, and he even wrote to his daughter at one point about how much he loved the drink. Abraham Lincoln was president during one of the most tumultuous times in American history, so it makes sense that he in particular worked long hours and even longer nights. What got him through it was just water, black coffee, and milk, as typical as it could get, but sometimes that is all you need to get through a tough work week. Martin Van Buren loved fresh oysters, and in his free time would go on fishing trips to get some catches of his own. Of course, he rarely had the time for trips like that, so the staff ensured he would get the freshest oysters America could serve up. Oyster-based dishes and seafood in general were something he delighted in very frequently. George W. Bush's 2007 state dinner was an elegant affair designed to celebrate the enduring bond between the United States and the United Kingdom. Hosted in honor of Queen Elizabeth II's visit, the dinner marked a moment of reflection on the long history of shared values, friendship, and collaboration between the two nations. The menu was a refined choice of classic British-inspired dishes with a touch of American flair. Guests enjoyed Dover sole, a delicate and prized fish from the waters of the English Channel, paired with a light spring pea soup to start the meal. For dessert, a traditional British trifle offered a sweet, layered finish to the evening, with fruit, sponge cake, and custard. Queen Elizabeth II and her husband, Prince Philip, were the distinguished guests of honor, with numerous U.S. political leaders in attendance. The dinner was a tribute to the special relationship between the two countries, emphasizing the mutual respect and enduring alliance forged over decades. In keeping with royal tradition, President Bush joked that he had spent considerable time practicing his British accent in preparation for the dinner. The event was about celebrating the personal ties that have long bound the U.S. and the U.K. As Bush noted, the Queen doesn't just rule, she rules with grace. A fitting tribute to a monarch who had witnessed so much history. Franklin D. Roosevelt was pretty popular since he was the one that put an end to the prohibition. Americans do not play about their bacon, cheese, or their beer, so as the president that finally set the record right, he enjoyed a lot of public love. Unfortunately, that did not extend to the reviews of his custom-made martinis. Gin, absinthe, and vermouth in strange quantities were mixed together and served to his guests, all of whom agreed that it was a pretty mid-drink. Abraham Lincoln was just like that, and he found a place to express that through Ford's Theater, which hosted performances of theater and also had meals for the visitors. Another place that he was known to visit was the Café de la Régence, which was known to be visited by high-ranking politicians at the time. Lincoln, known for his love of simple fare, once joked that a plate of plain apples and a glass of milk could keep him perfectly content at any gathering. An account from Rutherford B. Hayes Presidential Library and Museums tells us that James Garfield loved beer and drank almost nothing else, which props to him, he had the world of alcohol at his disposal and stuck to his roots. Nothing like a cold one with good company to get you through the day. Jimmy Carter's presidency was defined by a commitment to human rights and global diplomacy, and one of his signature state dinners in 1977 reflected those values. This dinner, held in honor of Middle Eastern leaders and human rights advocates, was a statement of Carter's vision for the world. The meal highlighted his emphasis on global peace and social justice, especially in the Middle East. The menu was a comforting and elegant showcase of American cuisine, beginning with roast lamb, a nod to Middle Eastern culinary traditions, followed by fresh, seasonal vegetables representing Carter's commitment to environmental issues. For dessert, peach cobbler brought a touch of Southern hospitality to the table, a reminder of the president's Georgia roots. Invited guests included leaders from the Middle East, as well as key figures in the human rights movement, with Carter aiming to build bridges across cultural divides. The dinner was a chance for the president to demonstrate U.S. leadership on the world stage, focusing on human rights and encouraging peace in a region often mired in conflict. Carter's belief in diplomacy was so strong that he famously joked, "If this dinner doesn't go well, I'll have to break out the peach cobbler for a second round of peace talks." A meal served with both purpose and charm as Carter worked to use every opportunity to make the world a better place. John Tyler was our second president after James Madison with an avid sweet tooth, but his cravings extended to Indian pudding more than anything else. You could always find him finishing up a bowl after a meeting or a rally or whatever it is presidents do to pass the time from day to day. Everyone has to unwind at the end of it, and Mr. Tyler chose Indian pudding as his relaxant. Millard Fillmore liked anywhere with good New England cuisine, and one of the places that had a good knack for it was the Willard Hotel. That place opened up during the time he was president, and it became a hub for influential people to eat and rub shoulders at. In particular, he loved places with a goof-clear soup. Abraham Lincoln's state dinners were a reflection of the man himself, straightforward, practical, and deeply rooted in purpose. Hosted during the harrowing years of the Civil War, these gatherings aimed to foster unity and provide a rare sense of normalcy in an otherwise fractured nation. Lincoln used the dinners as a symbol of resilience, showing that even amid national turmoil, the presidency endured and the Union still had a table big enough for everyone, at least metaphorically. The guest list included government officials, military leaders, and the occasional international visitor. These weren't lavish affairs, but purposeful ones, focused on building connections and fostering collaboration among those tasked with holding the country together. If tensions were high on the battlefield, Lincoln hoped a shared meal could, at least for an evening, encourage mutual understanding. The menu was humble but hearty, reflective of Lincoln's simpler approach to the presidency. Roast turkey and ham provided the staples, accompanied by corn pudding and apple pie for dessert, a nod to tradition and comfort. Lincoln, who famously had little interest in food himself, was more focused on the company than the cuisine. He believed these dinners were about people, not pomp. As one guest quipped, Lincoln wasn't there to impress your palate. He was there to hear your ideas and maybe share a story or two. In that way, his dinners truly embodied the union he sought to preserve. James Monroe probably took his love for wine the farthest. You know, a lot of people would opt for getting souvenirs or hitting up tourist spots when they find themselves in France, but a president on political visits chooses to go importing thousands of bottles of French wine instead. Looks like when there are no restraints, people's love of wine can go far beyond what you would expect. Despite having a French cook and a basement filled with French wine, Andrew Jackson was always found visiting the many places in Nashville where you could catch a good bite to eat. From things like chicken sandwiches to steaks, he was often at any tavern or inn with good grub. Jackson's fiery personality matched his love for hearty, simple meals, and he often ordered multiple steaks in one sitting. James Monroe, on the other hand, dearly loved Virginia ham as a breakfast option. He would swear by some ham with toasted bread, or just a plain and simple ham sandwich. You would be surprised what a small protein-based kick can do to your day and how it can get you going. Honestly, as far as breakfast options go, there are a lot more frugal and worse-tasting ones than Virginia ham, which is still a classic to this day. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy hosted a landmark state dinner with one goal in mind: to celebrate the enduring friendship between the United States and France during the early years of the Cold War. The occasion was especially significant because it marked the first official state visit of French President Charles de Gaulle to the U.S. The dinner was a statement of cultural diplomacy, showcasing the deep ties between two nations with shared democratic values. The menu served as a tribute to French cuisine, as JFK was known for his appreciation of good food and for fostering cultural ties through it. The evening began with a rich French onion soup, followed by the main course, filet mignon with béarnaise sauce, a classic French dish that highlighted the sophistication of the French culinary tradition. Asparagus with hollandaise sauce added a refined touch, while champagne parfait offered a sweet, celebratory end to the meal. The guest list was a who's who of diplomats, with de Gaulle and other dignitaries in attendance. This dinner was a diplomatic event meant to strengthen the U.S.-France alliance at a time when both nations were seeking to navigate the tense geopolitical climate of the Cold War. Kennedy, known for his charm, reportedly remarked that the only thing more exciting than this dinner is the prospect of working together with France to build a stronger world. A meal fit for diplomacy and a toast to the power of international friendship. Benjamin Harrison and his high tea parties were a casual delight for all White House staff and residents, and he was one of the few presidents who swore off alcoholic beverages entirely. The why of the matter escapes us even now, but what we do know for a fact is that he was very serious about his afternoon tea. John Quincy Adams likely had one of the healthiest lifestyles of any president. This man really knew his fruits, and he was deeply serious about them too. From mangoes to plums and grapes, he ate everything, and an assortment of fresh fruit would always be available in the White House during his presidency.
Which presidential Christmas meal would you recreate? Drop your favorite in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more forgotten flavors from American history.